regarding LULUCF. So I will give the floor to Ms. Torvalds for Renew, and then to Alexander Vondra, Sylvia Modig, and Norbert Linz and Rani Lopez.
Thank you, Chair. This is actually a long history. It started in Cancun 2010. In the negotiations about the decisions from Cancun, Finland was pushed into the corner, and the negotiating minister, due to all circumstances, and today a MEP in the Green Group, Ville Niinistö, he was forced to say that he can't sign the decisions. And at that time, a person from the Commission, we know him actually very well, came up and said, I think I have a solution. We could solve this inside Europe, inside EU. And that's the background of this exception for Finland. So the Commission promised to solve, and since that promise, the issue has been solved in the same way until now. And then the next question is actually, why is this so important for Finland, that we, probably for the first time in the history of Finnish membership in the European Union, starts a process both in the Council and in the Parliament? Well, if you look at the statistics of forests, then you see that Finland is the most forested country in Europe. 72% of the area is forest, and then you have a lot of lakes there. So you can probably say that, yes, we are actually living in the forest, and then we have some small cities all around. And this has been the basis for the Finnish economy at the same time. And if you need a story from today, when the COVID pandemic started, where did we go? We went to the forests. All the forests close to Helsinki were sort of filled with people seeking refuge in the forest. And that's actually an old pattern. If you go to the times when the Russians came to Finland, where did the Finns go? Into the woods. And when the Viking came, if you go even further back, when the Vikings came, where did the Finns go? Into the woods. So it's a cultural issue, and therefore it's also naturally a emotional issue. So Finland has 72% of its area covered by forest. The next in this line is Sweden, 68 or almost 69%. And then you go down, some of those who can show high percentages are Liechtenstein or Croatia or Montenegro. But then when you speak about the area they're actually covering, then it's not very much. In size in EU, Sweden and Finland are together covering 500,000 hectares of snow. To be able to come up to the same amount, you need the following 5 biggest countries, forest countries in Europe, to come up to the same issue. So, and then you have, of course, the issue of different kinds of forest. We have a boreal forest, which is fairly well kept, where we have, which is also in LULUCF negotiations. That's an important part. Do we have old forest, over 120-year-old forest? And we have, according to the statutes. Then we have the substitution effect. We know that one of the most dangerous problems we have in environment in the world is cotton production. We could actually substitute cotton production in a much more healthier and much more environmental way by using a organized forestry. And we are already building factories doing this. So for this reason, I think what the Commission came up with was unproportionate. It was sort of going back from an old gentleman's agreement. And the last information I just got was that the Council has actually settled on the side of Finland. So there is from the legal service of the Council, a point of view where they say that this is the way we should go, and Commission should actually back off from this position. Thank you.
Thank you. We are checking who to give the floor first to. Okay, so I suggest we start with Alexander Vondra for ECR and then Sylvia Monique for the left.
Thank you very much, Pascal. I don't know what is the privilege that I'm gonna to speak the first. Certainly, you know, we do have a high regard about our friend Niels. We also appreciate the specific circumstances of Finland with its extremely wide forest cover. And we also cooperated closely on the regulation when it was being negotiated in the previous parliament. But unfortunately, the claims of the resolution are not supported by the text of the regulation. And there are a lot of specifics for the other countries in different areas, and the parliament also does not honor us. So I think with regards to the parliament, the objection states that the compensation referred to LULUCF regulation should be understood as intended for use generally in all land accounting categories and not as being limited to use only within the category of managed forest land, since no such limitation is mentioned in any of the previous of the LULUCF regulation. So while Article 4 of the LULUCF regulation stating the general commitments does refer to all of the land accounting categories, Article 13 clearly limits its application to one category, namely managed forest land. So therefore, unfortunately, we cannot agree on the objection.
Thank you. Sylvia Monique for the left.
Thank you, Pascal. I will be speaking in Finnish. Arvoisa puheenjohtaja.
Chairman, these are critical times with climate change. We have to move forward in all sectors quickly so we can solve the climate crisis. We need emissions reductions in all sectors. We need also to strengthen carbon sinks. Always, we pay too little attention to biodiversity. This is very important. Biodiversity is weakening terribly, and forestry is very important in this, including LULUCF. Unfortunately, Finland is not an exception in monastery. Niels Torvalds said that forest management is good in Finland, but this is not the case. 70% of Finland's forests are threatened. Thinking of the use of forests, we have to look at national specificities. Clearly, the forest industry is very important in Finland. When planning investments for the years ahead, the use of timber will increase. So we need flexibility in the classification of forests. As the Commission says, the proposal would mean that Finland could be in the category that it wants, so it can be compensated for different reasons. For example, it could use agricultural reductions. This is the wrong route to take, and it would have a negative effect on biodiversity. Without looking for more flexibility, we should look to introduce sustainable forestry and agriculture. So in short, flexibility prevent us from reducing emissions from agriculture. Therefore, I cannot support the proposal.
Thank you. We move to SND and Javi Lopez.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. The objector claims that the Delegated Act restricts the use of the additional flexibility granted to Finland to exclusively manage forest land category, while calculating it is part of the national managed forest and land flexibility allocation, thereby ruling out its use in the other land accounting categories covered by LULUCF regulation. The managed forest land flexibility established in the Article 13 of the LULUCF regulation sets a compensation system for richly forest countries to prevent an accounting debit on the managed forest land category. Under no circumstances it may offset emissions beyond this category, and the additional flexibility granted to the Finland is included in Article 13, paragraph 4. And it's additional to the flexibility limits granted to all member states in Article 13, paragraph 3. If what the objector asks was correct, namely that the additional Finnish flexibility can be used on other land categories, it should have been included in the Article 12 of the LULUCF regulation that regulates flexibility between different land categories or accounting periods, which is not the case. The arguments raised in this objection are groundless in our view and do not reflect the provisions of the LULUCF regulation. The additional flexibility granted to Finland has been fixed within the Article 13, the managed forest land flexibility, and not within the Article 12, the general flexibilities. Therefore, the rules and limitations of Article 12 must be respected, and my group will vote against the objection.
Thank you. We are still waiting for Norbert Lins for the EPP to join. So I suggest we give the floor to the Commission first, and then we will be back to Norbert Lins. So for the Commission, we have Mr. Luca De Carli, DG Climat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. Of course, when we set out to prepare a delegated act, we can only implement what is in the basic act, which is the LULUCF regulation. As many speakers recalled, there's a basic obligation in LULUCF to balance emission and removals in the land sector, and then there's different land categories. Indeed, in Article 12, we have a general exception, meaning that member states, if they emit more than they remove, they can buy credits from another member state, or they can use within certain limits their ESR credits. And Article 13 is a specific exception only for the managed forest land category, where all member states get the possibility under certain conditions to emit a bit more if Europe as a whole has achieved the neutrality in the sector. And then in paragraph 4, there is an additional quantity given to Finland, taking into account the difficulty of achieving targets for countries that have a lot of forests. In our view, this possibility for Finland has only been given within the managed forest land category. It cannot be used, for example, for deforestation. And that's why in the Delegated Act, which basically says where are we going to record in our registry the different use of the flexibility, the different emissions and removals, we put this additional 10 million tons for Finland only for use in the managed land flexibility, same as the article, same as explained in the recitals of the Basic Act. So we continue to believe that the Basic Act correctly implements, that the Delegated Act correctly implements the Basic Act, and that this additional flexibility for Finland was given by the co-legislators only for the use in the managed land category. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So we have now for the EPP Norbert Lins.
Mr. Lins, could you please activate your camera?
Warum ist jetzt wieder die Kamera nicht an?
I can't manage to get the camera on, I'm afraid.
Sorry, then maybe I do it in English. Yeah? So I have problems with my camera, and I know you have waited for me. So just to be very brief, for the EPP, I can say that we are not in favor of the objection. We had had several meetings with stakeholders, with the Commission and the affected stakeholders, and we have the same opinion that the Commission fulfilled the obligations which were agreed 3 years ago within the negotiations on the LULUCF regulation. I was rapporteur myself there 3 years ago, and therefore I'm not in favor of these objections. We should set as soon as possible this regulation and this delegated act in place. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, and thank you, Norbert, for having been with us ahead of the schedule as well. So, we are going to vote on the objection tomorrow, and if applicable, there is a vote in the plenary in February. We are still waiting, as we are still ahead of the time schedule. I suggest we